Beijing, May 2010. A mid-level Chinese official walks into a crowded restaurant. Across the street, two plainclothes men watch his every move. By the time his meal is over, his fate is sealed. He will never walk out alive, and he is not alone. In the next 2 years, dozens like him will vanish, arrested, interrogated, and then executed. This was one of the most devastating intelligence failures in CIA history, and one of China's most ruthless counterespionage campaigns. Between 2010 and 2012, the CIA's once strong network of informants deep inside the Chinese government was ripped apart. How did China discover them? Was it a mole, a hacked CIA communication system, or both? The truth is still buried in the shadows, but soon after the story made it to the public by the New York Times, former intelligence officials provided explanations. But we will come to that later. After 9/11, the United States was locked in wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. But in the background, Washington's eyes were turning toward another rising power: China. China's rapid military modernization, cyber capabilities, and growing global influence made it the CIA's top long-term priority. The agency poured resources into recruiting Chinese officials with access to state secrets, military strategies, weapons programs, even inner-circle political decisions from Beijing's leadership. The CIA's sources came from every corner of the Chinese state. Some were mid-ranking ministry officials who slipped classified documents to their handlers. Others were scientists and engineers from state-owned companies, revealing details about China's cyber weapons and missile programs. The agency used covert communication systems, encrypted messages sent through seemingly innocuous websites, and classic tradecraft, dead drops, brush passes, safe houses. The intelligence was gold and gave the CIA a peephole view inside the Chinese state. But in 2010, the flow of information began to slow, and then it stopped suddenly. The agency suddenly lost contact with all its Chinese assets on the ground. With alarm bells ringing in Langley, hundreds of counterintelligence officials at the CIA and the FBI formed a joint investigation team. According to former officials, there were two main theories. Theory 1. China hacked into the CIA's covert internet-based communication platform, a system once thought secure, now completely compromised. Theory 2. A mole inside the CIA or among the recruited sources betrayed the network, feeding names directly to Beijing's Ministry of State Security. By 2012, the CIA's network in China was effectively gone. Years of painstaking recruitment, millions in covert budgets, wiped out in less than 24 months. Inside Langley, shock turned to paranoia. Was there a mole, a technical breach, or both? The incident crippled U.S. intelligence capabilities in one of the most strategically important countries in the world. But here is where this gets interesting. After months of investigation, the CIA zeroed in on a person named Jerry Chun Shing Lee. Lee was a former CIA officer recruited by the agency in 1994. He served as a case officer, meaning he recruited and handled human sources, and had access to extremely sensitive information, including the identities of CIA informants in foreign countries, specifically Beijing and Tokyo. At the time of the investigation, Lee was in Hong Kong, where he was born. The CIA lured Lee by offering a fake job with a handsome salary, but to get the job, he had to come back to the US, which he accepted. Lee landed in Hawaii and booked a hotel. The joint team formed by the CIA and the FBI was waiting for him to go out. As soon as Lee left his hotel, the team entered his room and started checking Lee's belongings. What they found was shocking. They found 2 small notebooks and a USB drive. Both notebooks had handwritten details, real names, phone numbers, and addresses of CIA spies inside China. A goldmine for foreign intelligence agencies. It took 7 years for Lee to confess that he indeed worked for the MSS, the powerful Chinese Ministry of State Security, and was sentenced to 19 years in prison for delivering top-secret defense information to a foreign government. But that's not all. Lee did play a major role in all of this, but intelligence officials maintain, off the record, that Lee's purported betrayal could not have resulted in the rapid and extensive damage inflicted on the CIA's networks in China. But as investigators dug deeper, clues pointed to a wider web of espionage, stretching far beyond the Chinese borders to Iran. An Iranian link tied into everything we discussed here. There was a third group among the investigators who felt that the answer was to be found online. By the early 2000s, the CIA ran a network of news websites inside Iran to communicate with assets. Handlers in the CIA were using a hidden communications app on publicly accessible websites to communicate with their sources in hostile countries, including China. And some believed this system had been compromised. In 2011, the Iranian Ministry of Intelligence, Vaja, claimed to have dismantled a CIA network in Iran. Some assets were executed, others were imprisoned. A few were successfully extracted by the CIA. According to an investigation by Reuters in partnership with the Citizen Lab from the University of Toronto, the CIA ran more than 800 websites to communicate with its assets inside Iran and other countries. The investigation quickly reached a shocking conclusion. The websites the CIA was using for communication had severe problems. They all had similar IPs, most of them were similar in their design, and most importantly, there was a hidden communication window below each website's home page, where an asset would type in their password to send messages to their handlers. Intelligence officials believe that the Iranians were somehow able to breach that, and could see who was visiting those sites. Soon after discovering that, Vaja started rounding up spies in Iran, many of whom were either imprisoned or executed. It's not clear whether China and Iran cooperated, but former officials said the communication systems used in both countries were similar. The two governments may have broken the system independently, but Iranian, Chinese, and Russian officials were engaged in senior-level communications on cyber issues around this time. Former intelligence officials said the fallout from the compromises was likely global in scope, potentially endangering all CIA sources that used some version of this internet-based system worldwide. Former intelligence officials now believe that the CIA's downfall in China wasn't the result of just Lee's betrayal, but two converging disasters. Jerry Chun Shing Lee's betrayal handed Beijing a direct list of names, while the compromised covert communication system in Iran exposed the rest. Together, they created the perfect storm, a 1-2 punch that allowed China to dismantle the network with unprecedented speed. In the end, Lee lit the fuse, but the broken system made sure the explosion reached every corner of the CIA's Chinese operations.